Hello to anyone who is listening. My name is Jess and I'm a producer for Tell Media. And today I'm talking to Gittemary Johansen, and she is a sustainability content creator from Denmark. Welcome to the podcast. How are we?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm great. How are you?
Good. Yeah, all good. Enjoying the mad weather we're having and just the general chaos of the office. It is an
I
absolute
mean, like,
hole in
I'm
here.
looking outside the window now. It's snowing.
Oh, you have windows. We have no windows in our office. This is our problem.
Oh,
So we're
oh, I
hoping
mean,
to get
I'm
that
in
fixed.
my bedroom. So,
Oh, so we just see in the corner of our screens it's now snowing. We're like, oh, is it? Right, that's crazy.
wild.
So, do you want to explain a little bit about what it is that you do and kind of the platforms that you work on?
Yeah, so since 2015, I have worked with zero waste and sustainable living, low impact living. I started off with a blog and my Instagram, and since I have evolved into making YouTube videos. And in 2016, I think I started giving like real public in real life speaks. And I've done that ever since. And in 2020, I had my debut as an author with my Danish book, Sustainable Badass, that is coming out this year in the US. We're excited about it. And that's sort of what I do.
Yeah.
I talk mainly about low impact, zero waste impact of different products, goods, and services. And yeah, just I want to show people all the both the good things and the bad things and the imperfections and the flaws and the difficult things about trying to be more sustainable. But I also want to show all the good things that come with it, the amazing quality of life that I personally get from trying to reduce my own impact. And yeah, just want everyone to follow on this, I would say, rather transparent journey that I am taking.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been reading your blog yesterday. Really enjoyed reading it, by the way. It makes for a
Thank you
good
so
read.
much. That means a lot.
So, how did writing the book come about? Did was that something that you decided, or were you kind of approached for it?
So I wanted to write a book and I've been wanting to for a long time. I graduated the University of Aalborg in 2019. And basically around that time, I had decided that, okay, you know what, next step for me and my business will be to do a book. I spent the last 2 years at uni really building up so I could go straight into being an independent business owner and just work with content creation full time, which was what I did. And I knew around that time, okay, I want to do a book. So I'll probably start prepping for it. So I ended up emailing tons of different publishers in Denmark, and I got a meeting with one who was super excited about it. I thought I was going to have, a meeting where I was going to pitch the idea. I came in there all like, listen to me. This is a good idea. Please let me write this book. And they had a completely different idea of that meeting because they thought it was like a contract meeting. So they just gave me a contact. They were already sold on the idea, which was amazing. So all that energy I had, my pitching energy, was suddenly just, what? Where is it? Uh, so I've been wanting to write a book for a long time, and I made the initial first reaction, and then I was contacted. I think about a year after the book came out in Denmark, I was contacted by a US publisher that wanted to publish it in an English version, and I'd already started doing the translation anyway, so that fit perfectly.
Oh, perfect. Oh, it looks like it's all working out for you then. I'm going to read it because I lived with a girl called Maisie at uni, and she's very like sustainability focused, and she ran an Instagram, and she started a society on campus called Swap Don't Shop. So like people bringing in
Yeah,
their clothes and doing like swaps and stuff, which has now
that's
been
amazing.
adopted. They call it adopted by other students at the University of York. So shout out to Swap Don't Shop. They're doing great
That's
stuff.
so cool. I love that
Yeah.
stuff.
So
Yeah.
you walked into our bathroom and it was like, right, 5 bamboo toothbrushes and like all of all that. We had it all
Just
matching. We had it down
the
to the
gang
ground.
showing up.
Absolutely, yes, definitely. So, kind of with kind of going green, as it were, like what was kind of the influencing factor that made you want to start to really live quite consciously in the first place? Like, how did that come about?
So for the longest time, I never thought about my own impact. Actually, I used to think I was going to work in the fashion industry, which is basically the complete opposite of what I'm doing now. And I'd never really thought about, my actions and the consequences of my consumption and the things I bought, where they came from or who produced them, etc. Never thought about it in my life. And then I just read somewhere that all the plastic that has ever been produced, all the plastic I've ever used in my life, still exists somewhere on this planet because it's a fossil material. It doesn't just poof go away. It can change shape and form and size for sure, but it's never going to go away. And that just started, like this spiral, this rabbit's hole of just finding more things and finding new information. And I sort of, my initial zero waste thought, or what I wanted to do was, like, I wanted to do like a fun month experiment where I tried to be zero waste for a month, and then I just never looked back from there. Also because it takes a lot longer than a month to go completely zero waste, if there even
For
is
sure.
such a thing.
So where would you kind of recommend people start? So where I started in the bathroom, I think your bathroom things are very easy to kind of go, at least recyclable and stuff like that. And there's plenty of like refill stations and whatnot. But how would you recommend people kind of start easing themselves in?
I mean, that depends on your preferences or your interests. Personally, I found that it was easier for me to start in the kitchen. So I started looking at, like cling, aluminum foil, plastic bags, stuff like that, outfacing those products, outfacing, plastic dish brushes and soaps in different containers. And then I started looking at what kind of food I was buying and if I could go for like farmers market produce that was unpackaged rather than supermarket goods that were both like super imported, super packaged, all that kind of stuff. But bathroom definitely works as well. Oh, now Molly is just in the background here. I don't think you can see it. I can see her in my video.
Oh
It doesn't matter.
no.
My dog is on the bed now and behind me, just walking
Oh,
about.
perfect. That is fine. We're completely fine with that. We're all for pets
Oh,
at Tell.
look, there she is.
Oh, what a beauty.
Oh, she's
Sorry to
lovely.
anyone who's
But
listening and not
sometimes,
watching.
so if you're only listening and if you're not watching, I have a dog and she's a little dumbass and she's always in the background. It's very
Good.
distracting, but
Hear
that's
it.
okay. But I also definitely recommend looking into like bathroom stuff because there's so many things we don't have like this super close relationship to that we use every day. So, stuff like toothbrushes, toothpastes, we have where our towels come from, we have our shampoo, etc. Those are not necessarily meaningful products, but service products, care products we use in our everyday life. And we have sort of the room often to try out new things because it doesn't necessarily feel as intimidating as sometimes trying out new dishes might be, if that makes sense. But I think definitely both things has really good benefits.
Absolutely, yeah. So when you kind of started out, did you start out on YouTube or did you kind of go for the blog first? Like regarding just content creation in general, how did you get going? And for other people who might be hoping to do the same thing, what kind of advice do you have?
So I started actually out with my own blog. I definitely also think it's easier to create pictures rather than video. So if you just want to show or speak or talk, but like it's easier to create still standing images, and that's sort of how I started out. And I think I started out when Instagram was also quite new. So not a lot of stuff was happening on Instagram, which was pretty interesting. Now it's very different, and the platform works in different ways from when I started. And I think when I talked about zero waste in Denmark specifically, only a handful of people had ever mentioned it. I was one of the first people to talk about it here. And now, of course, there's a huge community and a huge interest and following. So obviously it's different now, but I definitely recommend that you start out with a medium that works really well for you and that you like working in. Which is also why I ended up transitioning more towards video because I feel like I could say and show a lot more. And my content also went from being just oh, my content also went from being, like me just sitting in a chair speaking to me sort of showing you guys around my day, showing you like more practical elements of zero waste living because a lot of people can do this, do this, do this. But if there aren't really any examples of how that is done in reality or what kind of problems that might pose in reality, it can be a little bit unrelatable, I think. So what I try to do is that I show with vlogs throughout both my day or my week, okay, these are the problems that I'm having this week, or this is something that I find difficult, or this is something that was a lot easier than I expected, etc. To show how it's all, this is so cliche, but how it's all a journey. which it is, but it sounds cheesy. It does.
Well, if it's right, it's right. There you go. So
Yeah.
reading on your blog, you've done plenty of traveling. So kind of what are some of your favorite sort of travel stories and some of your favorite places that you've been?
Oh, I mean, I've I started a couple of years ago looking into green travel. So I phased out flying and then I started taking trains or buses and started evolving with that, which I think is cool. I also definitely acknowledge that it's really difficult, especially if you have like work, family, etc. Phasing out flying completely is very unattainable to a lot of people. And I recently talked about that on my own platform, how I recently had to take a flight actually. But if you have the option to travel without planes, I think definitely you should give it a go. And one of my first trips without planes, it was in a bus and it was from Aalborg to Brussels. It was like a 13-hour bus ride. And
Oh,
I think I read like half of the Order of the Phoenix on the way there. So,
time well
but
spent.
it was a really, really, it was a second hand, by the way, just because like all people were not supporting the site
Of
secondhand.
course.
um, but that trip was just so amazing, and I had such a great time, and I felt so accomplished because I was able to do this thing, and I'd been a little bit scared to take like longer trips like that, and that was just really amazing. I think that was super cool, and I'm looking forward to going again. I'm going to because Aalborg is pretty close train wise to many bigger German cities. It's also easy to get to Paris, etc. So I'm hoping that either this spring, which is now summer or autumn, that I'm able to go and travel like that again because I think it's so much fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And did I see that you went to London recently as well? What did you
I
think? What did
did,
you make of
yeah.
London?
Oh, London has this special place in my heart because I've been there many, many times when I was very little. And it's just almost like my legs just walk automatically to the places I need to go. And it was my first solo travel in a while. So I've been having some pretty serious travel anxiety. So I decided to take Molly just jumped down on the bed. She's just like, you cannot control this dog. I've had some pretty serious travel anxiety. So I decided, you know what? I want to do this. I want to see like how it goes, etc. And I just had the most amazing time. I had so much food. So much food. I usually, when I travel, I use Happy Cow, which is this app so you can see what the vegan and vegetarian options are in any given area, if there are any. And there are many, many different opportunities for vegan, plant-based, vegetarian, etc. In London. So I just ate all the time, constantly,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah,
thrift
I
and went
love
to
London.
thrift shops as well. Oh my goodness.
Oh, yeah. Right. I
Yeah,
mean, have you ever what's your experience of the Midlands? The Midlands in the UK. Fine if you've not been there, no one has.
I don't think I have. I don't think I have actually.
Oh, well, my favourite city I'm a Midlands girl, and my favourite city is Nottingham. And that Nottingham is chock full of like vintage and thrift shops. And they have like
Yeah.
it's like a chain kind of thrift shop. They're called White Rose, but they're really well spaced out because I think a lot of people's gripes with charity shops and stuff like that is that they can feel a bit jumble saley. But if White
Mm.
Rose is a really good place to start and Nottingham is a gorgeous city. Everyone should go. Those are my opinions. There you go.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, that's so cool. And the thing about I love thrift shopping or generally just secondhand shopping whenever I'm traveling because a lot of souvenirs are often mass produced, produced in sweatshops, produced really unethically and really unsustainably. But every time I travel somewhere, I go to a thrift shop and I get like a thing for my house from that place. So I have like this little glass bottle for balsamic vinegar from Siena, and then I have like this weird pair of glasses and like this tub from Copenhagen, and then I have like this thing from Hamburg, this thing from Paris, this thing from London, and I use them every single day. So it can be like sunglasses, plates. I have like this wine glass from Malaga, which I love and I use every single day. And you always reminded that these things came from that place and it came from that place, and it was all reused. So they have like this huge history that you don't really know, but you just know it's there. And I think that's fun, and it's a more
That is,
sustainable way of
yeah,
gathering souvenirs as well.
yeah. That is a really good idea. I'm gonna do that one. That is a good idea. I want to go to Turin in Italy. I tried to go, but it didn't
Oh,
really happen. But Kat, who is another producer at Tell, is a big advocate for Turin. So I'm going to try and head over there at some point. I think.
I
Fingers
haven't
crossed.
been.
No? Oh, well, apparently it's full of
No.
museums and stuff like that, and I'm all for museums.
Well, that is my jam. That is my jam.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Me too. Me too. So, what are kind of your hopes going forward in terms of both just content creation generally and with sustainability? Where are you kind of hoping short term and then maybe in 10 years' time?
Oh, that is a big question. So for short
Sorry.
term, for short term, I right now I'm just still growing my platform kind of but also still finding out what kind of content resonates the most with me, so it changes a lot. A couple of years ago I started the Impact series because I could see that, oh, there's definitely a big need for content specifically. Now this is only a video about aluminium, and it's only about aluminium, and when you've watched this you know pretty much everything about aluminium. And I still do these videos quite a lot with different kinds of materials. And I want to grow that format even more and talk more about these very specific things in sustainability, because at this point we know the big things. And when you search sustainability tips online, it's sort of like the same 12 to 14 different tips. It's sort of like no plastic bag, reusable straw, cutlery set. It's all the same things all the time. And I think most consumers get it now. And even if they don't, it's easily accessible information. So I want to dig a little deeper and keep evolving my content and keep becoming like keeping curious, honestly, and just researching also for myself, because I am benefiting tremendously from like this research series, because I learned so much about so many different things and I think it's super interesting. But for 10 years time, I couldn't tell you what I want to do. I assume that I won't be doing Instagram and stuff like that in 10 years, but I don't know really. I'm kind of excited to see where this goes. So, one of the things that I have been thinking a lot about is now I talk a lot to consumers specifically, and I've done a little bit of work with corporations or with companies that want to become more sustainable. Both in terms of like the laws and restrictions surrounding pollution and sustainability, um, supply chain transparency, stuff like that. And a lot of companies want to do better, but have a really hard time navigating what's right or what's wrong or what's true or what's false. And sort of just understanding what consumers want and what is feasible to do. And I would love to get into, like the company, um, sort of at some like, what do you call that? Sort of like giving advice to companies that want to do better, but perhaps don't necessarily have the qualifications to know what to look for. Because, like, at this point, I've been working with this for a long time. And I assume that I'll work with this in 10 years as well, because I love doing it. I'm so happy every morning I wake up. But perhaps it will evolve from a very consumer focused form of educational content and into speaking more to companies, because we as consumers, we have a lot of impact, we have a lot of power by ourselves, but we do not necessarily have the power to yield the entire changing body of sustainability by ourselves. We need to get politics involved, and we need to get the industry involved as well. It's like sustainability sort of like rests on three legs, and they're all important, but what we do in our household is a mere tiny part of what impact everything else around us is having. So I want to talk about those things as well, and perhaps become more politically involved as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It all sounds great. So
I
we,
don't know. I don't know.
yeah, who knows? You might get picked up by Netflix and do a documentary, speak it into the world.
Oh my
I would watch
goodness.
it.
Ah.
Yeah, yeah, let's go for it. So, what do you think about the whole argument about virtual events contributing to sustainability and stuff like that? In that, obviously, when everything stopped and the world kind of shut down, we saw like canals clearing up and like nature taking over again and stuff like that. So, what's your kind of take on the whole going virtual to save things kind of argument?
I mean, there's definitely benefits to it. There are also downsides, absolutely. And I think mental health wise, it took a big big toll on a lot of people. I would also like to note that even though we did like, and because the media picked up on these things instantly, so I was also just bombarded with articles about there are dolphins in this river and there hasn't been for ages because humans live inside now. Nature is taking over. It's amazing. However, our overall global greenhouse gas emissions only reduced with like 5% because the major contributors to ocean pollution, the major contributors to greenhouse gas emissions, were still doing their thing. It was all still happening. And that, again, I think is a good picture on how consumers, even though there are more consumers than there are billion-dollar corporations, we don't have the same power individually as they do. So even though I think there are definitely benefits to it, I had so many online meetings that could just continuously also now still be online meetings. We don't need to travel to have like a 30-minute meeting anymore. Like that's also okay. And so many online meetings could then also just have been an email. I do like talking to people though, but um,
Yeah.
even with, the mental health strains of being kind of isolated, I don't think that's healthy for people in general. At least it's not healthy for me because I started craving social interaction on all the time. I was bothering my friends every single minute of every day because I was just like starved. I just keep hitting my plant. I was just starved for social interaction. But overall, there's definitely a lot of benefits to virtual events, not, as the only thing we do, because I think once it's the only thing we do, it becomes detrimental to our mental health and to how we work. But there are definitely many things that absolutely can be virtual. I was just invited this week to a virtual documentary screening, for instance. Instead of traveling all the way to Copenhagen, it's like 6 hours with train, I can just watch it from home. Everyone got a login. That's so much easier. That is so much nicer, honestly. And a lot of things like that. I really like to see that some companies and events are sort of taking the good things from the lockdown, if you can say that, and then using them and interpreting them and see how we can use those going forward. I think that's important, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of
Yeah,
hybrid working is, I think, the way forward because that's kind of what we
yeah,
try and do in the office. In that we'll have a couple of days in the office where we just see each other and like catch up, and then obviously it's a lot easier to say, "Oh, what's your
you're
opinion on
real
this?"
people.
Like,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, it's a lot easier to just show people what you're doing than it is to like send them a link or like have to give them access to something or whatever. But then we
yeah,
like go in, work from home, do loads of work for a couple of days so we can come in and talk to each other and like ask what we had for dinner last night and what we're watching and
yeah.
not be work
And I
work
think
work for the
that's a
full
good idea.
yeah,
I
absolutely.
like that.
So yeah, do you think hybrid working then probably taking, like you said, if you can call it the best parts, maybe what we learned from the pandemic rather than the best parts?
Yeah, I think that's a better way of putting it. Sort of just like the lessons that we can use constructively going forward.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Exactly it. So, I mean, on what you're watching right now, what are you watching right now?
What am I watching right now? Sort of like shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So right now I just started The Gilded Age, which I got recommended from a friend.
Ah,
I also started watching last night. I started watching The Principles of Pleasure on Netflix, and I think stuff like that is so incredibly interesting. I love, just exploring that field and how like centuries of misogyny can sort of be boiled into how we think about and how we talk about our bodies today. I think is really interesting. I wrote my master thesis on something like that as well.
all
So
right.
that's what I'm watching right now. Then I also watch just, and I can say it, it's okay. Will judge me. Everyone online will judge me. I watch a lot of trash because I work a lot. So I end up using, like my screens. I end up using like my screen time or like my leisure time to sort of unwind with some really, really bad reality shows sometimes. And it just feels so nice. So I've just
Yeah,
watched like
absolutely.
2 seasons of Below Deck and I have no regrets.
There's nothing wrong with that. I'm watching, and I do recommend this. Human Resources on Netflix, which is a Big Mouth spin-off. Any Big Mouth fans out there?
Oh yeah, I've seen that. I
Um,
loved Big Mouth. That was really good as
yes,
well.
yeah. And me and my partner finished the whole thing last night. It is really good. It's really highly rated on Rotten Tomatoes, and like the way they explain and deal with some very serious issues is very impressive because it's still funny.
Yeah,
They talk about all sorts. It's like um, postpartum depression and like people with dementia and stuff. I can't remember the rest of it now, but stuff like that. The way they deal with it and talk about it is like it's genuinely very impressive.
that was
So
also something
recommend.
that stuck with me from Big Mouth. The sort of like, you're making fun of these things, but you're not kicking down. You're making genuinely funny things, but
Yeah, it's
without,
like
like
punching up
just
rather than
grabbing the
punching down.
absolute most
Yeah.
low hanging fruit about it. No, I really liked it. It was really cool.
Yes, that and Drive to Survive because we're doing fantasy F1 in the office, and I don't know anything
Oh,
about about F1.
oh no. Actually, just last week, me and one of my friends, we watched the entire second season of Bridgerton in one go. I was home at like 4 in the morning because like we had to watch the entire thing.
Oh, I've not. I've still
And I
not seen the
haven't done
first
that.
series.
Oh,
Oh,
I can recommend though. It's one of those things where just like it's trash, but it's good trash and it knows. And it caters to something very primal in all of us. I think it's super, super hilarious and funny. And I read a review once that said, you will enjoy this show so much more if you just think about the fact that they are all stupid. And when you know that, it's so much more enjoyable to watch. I really, really
right,
liked it. Like
noted,
genuinely I loved it. It has that
noted.
soap opera energy to it.
Yeah,
Shit
I'm seeing
shows.
a resurgence on Twitter lately of people just being like, "What happened to the good old rom coms? They're always just something else now. You don't get rom coms like you used to." But there you go. I'll have to give it a go, Bridget. There you go.
Oh yeah,
So we're
absolutely.
getting towards the end, so I have got to ask: in a film about your
Yeah.
life, who would play you?
Oh goodness. Oh goodness. Okay, so there's basically no way of answering this question without either like being super mean to yourself or being a little bit conceited, right?
I
Those are like two
know.
camps
Be
to fall into.
conceited. Go for it.
So one of the things that I hear basically every single week, there's always someone in my comments going, I don't know if anyone has ever told you this, but you look so much like Emilia Clarke. And I used to have lighter hair as well, which
Yeah,
definitely made it worse. So I would have to go simply just for accuracy.
of
That is
course.
incredibly conceited. I would have to go Emilia Clarke. But I love her. She's such a breath of fresh air. She's just so happy and just I love her. So that would also be okay with me. And she's beautiful. But that again sounds super conceited, and I didn't mean to be that. Maybe I did. It's okay.
Yeah, be conceited. Go ahead. Um,
Always. So
so
yeah, I
we're
think
getting
that's
quite
my
the
choice.
cast. Yeah, we're getting quite the cast of people together from these episodes. We've got who have we got so far? Um, oh god, the only one I can remember is the last chap I interviewed said Tom Hardy. Jeff from Art of Protest said
Oh,
Tom Hardy, which I agree with. So I think I'm Felicity Jones, if you know Felicity Jones
yeah, absolutely.
from The Theory of Everything and all
Some
that, because
cast.
she's a Nottingham based. I think she's Midlands anyway, but I like her. She's cool. So, where can the people who are listening find you, and what would you like to plug?
You can find me on YouTube or you can find me on my own blog. You can find me on TikTok as well if you're into that. And you can find me on Instagram. I am Gittemary everywhere. And my website is gittemary.com where you can find recipes and articles and just everything you want. And if I had to plug one thing, I think it would be both my book, which is already available for pre-order, or my Impact series. If you're interested in anything on YouTube, where you want to sort of watch and just learn something about a specific topic, I think there are like 50 videos in that playlist now, and it's everything from fast fashion to animal agriculture to stainless steel to bamboo. You can find everything, and yeah, I think you should find everything.
All right, that's perfect. Thank you very much. So,
Amazing.
thank you for coming on the podcast, and see you next time to everyone that's listening. Ta-ra.
Thank you so much for having me.